Hello everyone and welcome to the Waynesburg Effect. I'm Ryan Schwertfeger here alongside fellow panelist Paige Carter and Mr. Sean Mead. Now if you haven't seen this show before, each panelist will bring up a discussion topic that affects us as college students, us here in the country, or even us in this general area. Each panelist will get an opportunity to give their opinion on the issue at hand, and we may even engage in a friendly debate on the topic. While all of us have our own opinions, we do our best to make sure that what we say is backed up with facts, so that you, the viewer, can not only be more informed, but also capable to form your own opinions on how the topic we discuss affects you, your family, and your friends. This is the Waynesburg Effect. Welcome back to the Waynesburg Effect. Let's get things started with Miss Paige Carter.
Thanks, Ryan. Justice Ferguson seemed to be moving past the unrest surrounding the trial of Michael Brown. A local rioter shot and injured 2 police officers. The city has been making strides to redeem itself from the trial. The city manager, municipal judge, and the police chief and other officials accused of running a racially based legal system have all been removed from the justice system. City Councilwoman Kim Tohen, the Ferguson Police Department, and even President Barack Obama are enraged by the unnecessary violence that continues to cloud the city. The gunshots have threatened to reopen the well of anger, unrest, and racial tension that has stifled life since Mr. Brown's death last summer from shots fired by a white police officer. Sean, do you think that this city, the city of Ferguson, will ever move past this reputation, or do you think that this is just going to be the brand of the city because of things like this? I mean, 2 police officers were shot just guarding the police station.
Well, Paige, Ferguson has been one of those things that has been in the news a lot the past 6 months, non-stop with what's going on between the shooting of Michael Brown and whatnot. I remember back in November, I think it was, when they made the decision, I was watching the news probably till 1 or 2 in the morning on CNN, and they had videos of what was going on. Like Little Caesars, for example, was something that was burned to the ground just from the rioters. A lot of peaceful protesting is going on, but that's one thing you don't see a lot of, the peaceful protesting. And everything you hear about coming out of Ferguson is the violence. So hopefully the peaceful protesters and the media, they can shine their light on the peaceful protesters a lot more than all this negative activity that's going on.
Well, Ryan, to bounce off that, do you think they should even be allowed to protest, even peacefully? I know it's a First Amendment right, but with people getting shot and other people's lives in danger, the article I read said that local businesses on the main street are shutting down, not because of economic problems, but because they're scared for break-ins and just people, protesting for this event that happened. So do you think they should even still be allowed, even though, like Sean said, there are peaceful riots happening?
Well, I definitely think they should be continued to allow to protest if they want to. I think that would set a bad standard if all of a sudden now you're saying you can't protest. I mean, even if you remember, if you go all the way back in history, with I believe there was a neo-Nazi movement in Michigan that wanted to have go through the streets as part of a parade, and a lot of people in the community who were Jewish were really upset about that. That was in Skokie, I believe it was. And the Supreme Court said that they were still allowed to go through and march, even though it might not be to what the local residents wanted to see, but it was still their First Amendment right. Now, this is slightly different, I guess you could say, because of the violence that people have been seeing in the Ferguson area. However, I think that can just be solved by having maybe a bit more police presence there. I know for a while they did have the National Guard present. I don't think the National Guard should move into Ferguson. However, I think that during this tough period, it might be helpful if they have state police or the National Guard, or even maybe form a county police force. I know that's
But the
common.
policemen are the ones who are the target, because the whole city is still disgruntled over the fact that a white policeman shot a young black kid. And even though the lawyers showed the media, when I was watching, they showed the evidence when he came out and debriefed the case, but the policemen are the target. So do you really think bringing in more policemen, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, I'm just saying, do you think that more policemen in this city where they despise policemen will make a difference?
Well, then I guess my question back to you would then have to be, then what is the solution instead? I mean, we always think, law enforcement has to be the ones who come in and take control and effectively try and deal with the crowds. And I think that especially that we're also seeing more of the violent protests because they always feel like justice hasn't been done because of just the mindset that maybe some people in the media and leaders of that community have continued to voice and make really loud. However, I think almost to Sean's point, trying to say that they should shine a light on the peaceful protests that are going on. I think that one of the things you learn in media is they're always looking for what's going to draw people to watch their show on television. So of course, for the most part, if there's a bunch of people peacefully protesting, not too many people are going to want to tune in and watch that. But if they're seeing something going on in the streets or etc., that's something people are going to try and watch in order to figure out what's going on. Oh my gosh, is someone getting hurt? Because we're always very interested in that as just human beings. It's just kind of our nature. If an area has a flood, we feel for the people, but we don't want to hear really about the story of people helping the flood victims. We want to see the rescuers going and rescuing the person in the river. It's really sad, but it's just our human nature. We want to see what we want to do. So I think that I agree with you in the sense that there really isn't too many other avenues to go in this predicament of police and in Ferguson. But I think the city can move past if somehow they are able to shine a light on the protesters who are doing it peacefully, or if they brought in maybe police that can keep it a little bit more under control.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting to contrast the situation with the Trayvon Martin. And I almost think, Sean, that the protesting is continuing in Ferguson because they didn't get that empathy that the Trayvon Martin case got. A lot of people are critical of Barack Obama because he was very empathetic toward Trayvon Martin, but it seemed as though he didn't give that same empathy to Michael Brown. So what do you think, Sean, is going to take for this to die out nicely and respectfully?
To be honest, the key thing here is most likely going to be the time it takes. Over time, people are going to worry less about it. New things are going to come into the public eye that others are going to worry about and change.
But it's been almost 6 months.
It has been, but...
And people are still protesting. So can we really say that? Because I don't think Trayvon Martin I don't think there's rallies surrounding his situation, but he kind of got the justice from the general public, even if it wasn't from the system. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in a previous episode. We're talking about it again, so we'll have to see if anything changes over the next few weeks and if it's going to be another topic here on the Waynesburg Effect. But coming up next after the break, Facebook has changed their community standards. Now, we'll have all of that and more right after this.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him going on to fascinate millions with his talent? 1 in 260,000. The odds of this born racer having 157 career top 10 finishes in NASCAR? 1 in 125 billion. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year? 1 in 195 million. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I'm NASCAR driver Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
1.39 billion people. Now that's slightly more than the population of China, the world's most populated country. And there's a good chance you are one of those 1.39 billion people if you have a Facebook account. It's fairly commonplace for Facebook users to complain about layout changes or problems the social media site is having, but now Facebook has announced an update to their community standards policy. According to Facebook, the changes will give more detail and clarity on what is and is not allowed in an attempt to explain to its users what they can and cannot post and share with their friends. Among some of the clarifications, the term offensive content was further explained to say that nudity, bullying, and hate speech all fall under that category. This change also follows a policy change by Twitter in recent weeks to prohibit intimate photos or videos without permission of the user in the video. So are these changes and clarifications really going to be helpful in the long run? Some may argue these clarifications and changes are needed in order to protect young people who use social media, in addition to attempting to limit postings that could be offensive to other people. Others say that Facebook and social media sites are becoming too restrictive and are limiting freedom of speech, with some columnists even saying that this is a stepping stone to blocking other types of content in the future. So I'm going to start off with you, Ms. Carter. Do you think, generally speaking, is Facebook updating and clarifying the rules a good thing?
Yes. What drives me crazy about this generation is we have no understanding of legality and contracts. If you go on any website, if you give them your information, before you hit submit, you have to hit an agreement to the terms and conditions. None of us read it, myself included, but in those terms and conditions are the things you can and cannot do under that site. So you are seriously signing away your rights to be incongruent with the website. So hateful speech, nudity, and bullying are all things that are not allowed on Facebook. So if they're cracking down on that finally, that is well needed, it's long overdue, and it's just interesting because we're in this shift of a generation where we're doing everything online, and now we have to deal with people doing wrongful things in a different way.
What would you say to the people who say, I would read all of the terms and conditions, but it's going to take so long out of my day, it's
Contracts
14
have always
pages
been long. Contracts have always been long from a legal standpoint. They're never short, and it's not its job to be short. It is clearly stating everything. So if someone tries to sue or someone tries to complain, they can point to that and say, we told you, we notified you, and it's not our responsibility that you didn't inform yourself. So
if people really cared enough, they'd read every last one of those pages of the terms and conditions. So,
yeah.
Well, now that you've given us a little bit of your input on this, I'd like to ask you, you said what kind of going along what you just said there, do you think it is social media's responsibility then to crack down on this sort of thing? Or should it be more up to the person who's actually using the social media?
well, it's always like at the viewer's discretion's advised and whatnot. But that's why Facebook and social media sites have those options where if you see something hateful or bullying going on, you can report it. Now, a lot of people will report stuff and it won't get deleted, but Facebook monitors those things. If you report something, if you find it offensive, and then you report it, and then they find like a lot of vulgar language, or even it says they want to remove nudity and certain images off of Facebook, they're going to remove those comments. They're going to remove the pictures. They're going to remove the statuses.
But then is that up to the job of Facebook to do and go through people's accounts and see if they have those things, or
They
is it
agree
up
to it.
or is it up to the people who are, because one of the things that Facebook said is that they're hoping that more people are going to, when they're on Facebook, recognize that these things aren't allowed, and they're going to notify Facebook. Because almost all the time that they do remove stuff, it's because people hit the little, the button that says, this is offensive content, please look at it. So is it more the user's responsibility, so us as the social media users, to tell Facebook? Or is it more Facebook's responsibility to make sure that we're following their rules?
Well, when people get their comments reported after a couple of times, then their Facebook accounts can get blocked or even deleted after a while. So people shouldn't, first off, they shouldn't even be posting bullying, they shouldn't be posting profanity, stuff like that on Facebook. Because like they say, once it's on the internet, it's on the internet forever. There's no getting rid of it. You can say it's deleted, but deep down to the heart of the context, it's still out there somewhere.
There's no sense of internet conduct, I think, because we have so many young kids on social media, and now there's this new wave of older people getting Facebook and other social media, which is fine, but not everyone knows how to use it. I'm not sure anyone in our realm of, peers and friends use social media as we should. It should be a place where there is no profanity, and there are these things that we see all the time. We get away with a lot on the internet, and I think that this is just a really interesting time where we're trying to make it more of a neutral zone because so many people are using it.
Well, the jump from Facebook to Twitter, the big thing with Twitter is people follow celebrities on there. And celebrities are also known to get into things that they shouldn't be doing. Keith Olbermann, for example, with the whole Penn State issue, he tweeted a statement basically saying what Penn State was doing with some cancer fundraiser was stupid and there were other things they should be worrying about. He got a lot of backlash from it. And he ended up getting suspended from his job from ESPN for a couple months.
Wow.
So there is reprimandations that come from it, because you do have the freedom of speech, but you don't necessarily have the freedom of the consequences that come from them.
Well, you bring up the whole freedom of speech aspect. I just want to quickly kind of touch on the thing about, similar from the last segment when we talked in Ferguson, we talked about that they have the right to protest, but then the matter of if it's going violently, should that be stopped or quelled? I just want to quickly ask both of you, do you think the freedom of speech is being limited when Facebook and Twitter and all these other people put restrictions in place?
No, I think if there was no terms and conditions to sign and we just strictly went on this website on our own free will and it wasn't monitored in any way and Facebook didn't want to hold us to any kind of standard, then yes, our freedom of speech would be violating. It would be violating our freedom of speech. And I think if this wasn't a topic about you're not allowed to post religious statuses or you're not allowed to be a part of certain groups that are associated with certain affiliations, that's whenever I think we should be having a conversation about constitutionality. But you have a right to decline or accept that contract. That is the terms and conditions. So with that being said, I don't think it's a violation of our freedom of speech at all.
I agree with Paige there. So.
Well, we'll have to see what the feedback is, as I'm sure people are starting to get the notification that the guidelines have been updated, and we'll see if there's any other backlash that comes from about it. Now, when we return from break, Mr. Sean Mead is going to discuss the controversy surrounding large salaries of professional athletes. We'll be right back.
The inherent right to work is one of the elemental privileges of a free people. Endowed, as our nation is, with abundant physical resources, and inspired as it should be to make those resources and opportunities available for the enjoyment of all, we approach re-employment with the real hope of finding a better answer than we have now.
Donate to Goodwill, where your donations help fund job placement and training for people in your community.
I think someone at my friend's school has this thing called autism. My friend's brother's son has autism. My neighbor's son has autism. My son has autism.
Autism is getting closer to home. Today, 1 in 68 children is diagnosed with autism. That's about a 30% increase in 2 years. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Welcome back to The Waynesburg Effect. Oftentimes, people feel conflicted when they realize how much money professional athletes make just by playing a game. Beloved Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger signed a 5-year contract that will give him $99 million. Part of that deal includes $35 million in bonuses and salaries. Now, should athletes be getting paid this money to just throw around a ball? Other athletes, before we go into some questions, that are making this much money, Floyd Mayweather is up there. These are all according to Forbes. Floyd Mayweather is top gun when it comes to his gross in salary. Cristiano Ronaldo, second. LeBron James, number 3. Lionel Messi is 4th. And Kobe Bryant is number 5. So these are just some other players that are up there making a lot of this money. Now, Paige, why do you think these athletes are making so much money, especially around here, Ben Roethlisberger being the QB of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, I think that this is a question that's always going to be tossed around, no pun intended. But if you think about it, the NFL, the NBA, all these professional sports associations, the chances of someone playing for them are so slim. The chances of them getting into these teams from a D1 school, that's their only chance if they're playing a D1 school. But the supply and the demand, I think, is what it comes down to, really. They're paid this much because that's how much money the industry is worth. So if you look at it from that perspective, if you look at the statistics of how much the NFL, its gross income, the merchandising, the even the stadiums, those are all factors that contribute to these salaries. So is it wrong in that light to say that they're getting paid for the vocation they chose because they just chose a vocation that's very popular and people want to see it? So they are getting paid a lot of money because we like to consume their talent.
This is true. So you're basically saying these athletes are getting paid this much money because that's what the team and the city themselves value them.
Even beyond the cities, I mean, fans are universal these days. You don't have to be from Pittsburgh to love the Steelers.
This is true.
And every fan is contributing to the marketplace of a team. So the more the team is worth, the more the players will get paid. The more the players will get paid, the bigger fan base they most likely have. So really it's just simple economics, and this goes for any kind of industry. If you have a strong enough demand, you can charge enough money. I mean, we're all walking around with $600 phones. How is that even possible? It's because it's demanded, you know? It's something that we want. And so they can sell it for that price. So.
And even interestingly enough, on top of that, if I can quickly add,
Go right ahead.
it's usually the fans themselves that are the ones that are critical of the players making that much money in the first place. But then they're the ones who want their teams to win and then pay the ticket prices to show up at the games. Said ticket prices go towards paying their salaries.
Exactly.
So if they really had this much of an issue, don't go to the game.
Exactly.
Ultimately, the fans are the ones who are allowing for them to be paid so much, because it's such a sought-after game and just channel. I mean, the Super Bowl, think about how much those people who have commercials get paid. I mean, it's just a money machine. So I don't see why I wouldn't expect someone who plays a game that's so popular to get paid that much.
Very true. Now, Ryan, this leads me to my next question for you. Do you think these average Joes, per se, the teachers, the working people, the middle class, should be getting paid more than these athletes, or even similar in pay? Because teachers, they provide education for the future of America. These soldiers who are fighting American freedoms, should they be getting paid more than these athletes? Because their jobs, I guess you could say, they're more important than an athlete's.
Well, I think everyone should be paid more, but that's not always up to every single individual to determine how that's going to work out or whether that's economically feasible to do. Teachers, I mean, we could spend all day talking about each different types of people, but teachers, for example, I think teachers should be based more off of merit pay. So if you're doing a good job in the classroom, you deserve to get paid more. With the military, I think they're doing an incredible service for our country. They should be making a little bit more than I think they are. However, they do also get a lot of benefits in addition.
And we can't pay each military member $99 million.
Correct. Correct. And going along with also another thing of why the salaries are so high, you want to attract those people not only to come to the team, but you also have to think of all of the health things that come up if you're a football player. You can have concussions and injuries, and if you're only playing for such a small bit of your life, teachers can have tenures that go on for maybe even like a generation. A parent could have a certain teacher and then have their child have the same exact teacher. Most likely with these sports players, they're only 10, 15 years in the majors and they're out. So they kind of have to go in, make a lot in their short period of time while they're still healthy before they start falling apart, I guess you could say.
I didn't even think about it that way. So I guess what it all comes down to is you don't pay teachers much. You don't pay military people to go see military combat and stuff like that. What people get down to the grid about, they pay to see the sport. They pay to wear jerseys. They pay to eat. Just think how much the concession stands are at a Pirate game. I shouldn't be paying $10 for a hot dog and a drink. So.
But you do.
But I do.
See,
it's all about
we can't
the
really
atmosphere.
complain about it because we are contributors to that market. It's the entertainment industry, you know?
That we are. That it is.
Coming up next, we're going to conclude with our final speed round, so stay tuned.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream. That I would never become a superhero. but I learned how to fly. Just to come back in a new disguise and be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
For our final segment today, we're going to do something a little bit different. Now we're each going to discuss something that caught our eye in the news this week in our final speed round. So let's start off with Paige. What did you find?
Okay, this cracked me up. So there was a show on C-SPAN live. A man calling himself Jack Strickland calls in and starts talking about the influence on Congress regarding Iran. And in the middle of his statement, he starts quoting the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song by saying, he was talking about the reform, and then he was like, a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in our neighborhood, and they cut him off mid-air. And the anchor just looked so dumbfounded. It was hysterical.
C-SPAN always seems to have these things that come up every once in a while that are just
well, no one's really watching
random.
to see it, if we're going to be honest, so.
If Ted Cruz can read Green Eggs and Ham, I think someone could go on the air and do The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
You're not
What
wrong.
about you, Mr. Mead? What were you able to find?
Well, get this, okay? This cat has outlived all 9 of her lives. Tiffany 2, a tortoiseshell feline, holds the Guinness World Record for the oldest living cat and reached another milestone Friday when she turned 27 years old. So the owner of this cat bought Tiffany 2 for about $10 27 years ago. So the cat wasn't very old when she first got it, but who would have thought that this cat would have lasted to become 27 years old? That's about 110 years, or excuse me, 125 years in human age. So this cat is basically a walking dinosaur to this owner, so.
Do you have an idea like what the oldest cat is? Like,
She is the oldest living cat.
She is the oldest living
currently.
cat.
We'll just go
She
with
is.
that, yeah.
She is.
9 times 3.
Yeah, the owner said it was the best thing she's ever bought. So
$10.
It's lasted a while.
Yeah.
So.
And then for my interesting video, I found Jimmy Kimmel. There was a Jimmy Kimmel show, and President Obama was on, and he did a segment called Mean Tweets. So President Obama actually sat down and read some of the awful things that people tweeted about. I thought it was pretty funny. And I know this is something that's becoming more prevalent with our presidents, especially since Nixon appeared on Laugh-In in terms of presidents going on these comedy shows. And what do you think guys about that?
Well, even Barack Obama, he appeared on Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis. So it's cool that these presidents, they're taking a step back from the hard truth, and they're easing up, adding some comedy to the world. So
my favorite time for SNL is during election season, because all of the senators and candidates go on the show and make fun of themselves, and it just, I don't know, I think it makes them seem human. And I don't know, I have my opinions on whether a president should do that or not, but it is funny and alleviating. So
it is. So
go Barack, I guess.
Alrighty, well, thank you for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Waynesburg Effect, and we'll see you next time.